Maybe the US dollar is going back to being backed by gold, except this time it's going to be digital gold. I wouldn't be surprised if 15 years from now, the US dollar was backed by Bitcoin using BitcoinOS.
Thank you for doing this interview.
Yeah, pleasure.
Could you start with by telling me your name and what you do?
I'm Yago and I work on BitcoinOS.
All right, great. Please tell our audience, what is BitcoinOS?
So what BitcoinOS does is it allows us for the first time to turn Bitcoin into a truly programmable layer. In block 853626, which was in June of last year, we demonstrated for the first time the ability to verify ZK proofs on Bitcoin. Now, this is huge implication because what it means is we can take any computation and turn it into a proof that can be executed on Bitcoin. So that basically means you can take any computation and turn it into what we would call a smart contract on Bitcoin. But it goes beyond that. It means we can have programmable tokens on Bitcoin. So, we could have real world assets or stable coins or anything generated on Bitcoin, turning Bitcoin into a universal ledger. And it means that we can trustlessly integrate other chains into Bitcoin, effectively turning all of crypto into a layer 2 of Bitcoin. And the reason this is so important is because today, I think everyone knows crypto is extremely fragmented. Every single chain is its own island. Everyone's fighting against everyone. There's, tribalism and terrible UX, and liquidity is like spread thin, like thin butter. And so if there was some way that we could combine everything, that would completely change how reliable crypto is, how easy it is to use, and it would really change the trajectory of adoption. Well, turns out there is one chain that no one's fighting with, that everyone trusts, and that has a high degree of trust even among institutions and governments, and that's Bitcoin. And so really, the key thing that our technology does is allows all of crypto to integrate into Bitcoin, achieve Bitcoin level security, and become one universal internet of value.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important, right? Like all that liquidity is, most of crypto's liquidity is in Bitcoin. And it's locked up, basically, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you take out stable coins, BTC alone is 70% of all of the value in crypto. And so if we unlock that, I mean, think about it's like we're fighting with, both arms tied behind our backs. Mm-hmm. We've lost 70% of the potential asset value, capital value, and user base by not unlocking BTC. And that is what BitcoinOS is doing, as well as integrating it into the rest of crypto.
Right. In broad strokes, how is this system going to work? Like, is it going to be rate limited by Bitcoin's what's it called, block time, which is roughly 10 minutes, right? So these blocks have to settle on.
Yeah. So I think people make too much of a big deal out of Bitcoin's 10-minute block time, because the reality is what you're looking for is time to security. Right? If you're transferring a large amount of capital, how long do you need to wait? How many blocks do you need to wait in order to be secure? Well, it turns out that the number on most chains is pretty simple. It ends up being roughly an hour, right? With Ethereum, you need a lot more blocks to achieve the same level of security. With Solana, you need a lot more blocks to achieve the same level of security. And so if you're doing large transfers, if you're doing what are called settlement transfers, you're waiting an hour. Doesn't matter if it's Solana or Sui or Ethereum or Bitcoin. Really, you can break this problem up into two. There's the settlement question, and then there's the question of how quickly you can sort of confirm transactions. With ZK technology, with sort of the ability to integrate systems into Bitcoin, you'll be able to confirm transactions instantaneously, and then within an hour achieve finality. That's we're never going to really get better than that.
Okay. Yeah, I see. But this is going to be great. You can educate me because I'll be the pleb.
Sure.
But for like Solana, so Ethereum versus Solana, you hear a lot about like transactions per second, right? Yeah. Ethereum is quite slow compared to Solana. what would be the analogous like transactions per second that could be supported on like a Bitcoin layer 2 that has to settle back onto Bitcoin?
Infinite.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you could be running an entire massive multiplayer online game and have every single transaction, every single user action confirmed with Bitcoin. And the reason is that here's the big thing that people don't realize.
Okay.
For the last 10 years, we've been thinking about smart contracts in one way and one way only, right? Which is that you take all of the software that you write, you take the entire virtual machine, right? EVM or Solana VM, these are virtual machines. These are sort of ways, these are the computer, right?
Yep.
You take all of the data and you shove it into the blockchain.
Yeah.
And then every single full node and every single validator needs to rerun every single computation. So on Ethereum, the reason Ethereum is slow is because when the user do a transaction, that's a whole bunch of computations that need to, the smart contract needs to respond, maybe several smart contracts need to respond, and then 10,000 different 10,000 different computers around the world need to rerun that calculation.
Yep.
That's what makes things slow. That's true about Solana, it's true about Sui, it's true about Avalanche, it's true about Ethereum, it's true about the entire smart contract blockchain paradigm. Because in all of them, the way we try to achieve verifiable compute, right? Computations that can be verifiable publicly, is we put the whole thing into the blockchain. What's changing right now is that because of a new kind of cryptography, ZK cryptography, you can have one computer, a very big, fast computer, whatever computer you would be using anyway for running your game or running your exchange, can run the computation and just create the proof that it ran it correctly. And then everyone can verify that proof really, really fast.
Yeah.
And so what that means is we don't need to take the smart contract and the VM and the data and shove it into the chain anymore.
Yeah.
We can actually keep it out of the chain.
Right. Yeah.
And so that means that everything that you're used to with regular computation, like your computer game, it runs on AWS servers, Binance, they run on their own servers. They will be able to do all of this, but still be decentralized.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And so for BitcoinOS, it doesn't need like, you hear about like opcode changes that are necessary for Bitcoin to kind of really enable layer 2s. It doesn't need those to do that?
No, that's the really important thing, right? I think it's really important. I think one of the main things that makes Bitcoin so valuable is that unlike everything else, it's not software. It doesn't change, doesn't have updates, it doesn't have upgrades. It's like a law of nature. Mm-hmm. And that's why people rely on it.
Yeah.
Now, if we need to make a change to Bitcoin every time we want to introduce an upgrade, we're turning Bitcoin into like every other chain, and we're reducing the reliability of the entire industry. And so we've worked really, really hard to figure out how we can utilize and cutting edge cryptography, actually make changes, introduce new functionality and features to Bitcoin as it is today. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we refer to what we've done as sort of like the first permissionless upgrade of Bitcoin. Because as developers, we were able to come and without asking anyone's permission, without making any changes to the code, we were able to upgrade the capabilities of Bitcoin just through clever technology.
Okay, so then please educate me. Why do I hear like on crypto Twitter and from other people that the need for these new opcodes? What's the...
Engineers gonna engineer, right? Engineers want to fiddle, right? And I actually think it's very dangerous, right?
Okay.
We need engineers, of course, and it's great that there are people who want to engineer Bitcoin. But in the early days of Bitcoin, I remember there was this really great line, right? This great meme, which is, I've just heard about Bitcoin and I'm here to fix it, right? So people have this urge to want to meddle, to want to fiddle, to want to change. And they're right. Like almost all of the proposals they make actually would be an improvement to Bitcoin in a very narrow sense. But in the broad sense, if you were to start changing Bitcoin that way, you would destroy Bitcoin as Bitcoin.
I see. Are there any for the layer 2 system that BitcoinOS is enabling? Are there any security compromises? Are there any?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a security trade-off, but it's a really interesting one. Mm-hmm. So our system maintains what we call cryptographic integrity. In other words, it's mathematically secure. Mm-hmm. so long as there is a single honest participant. So if you think about most systems, even Bitcoin, the way Bitcoin works is you need a majority of the miners to be honest. We call a situation where the majority of miners are not honest the 51% attack, right? Now that's an important trust assumption you have throughout crypto. We've gone one better. So our trust assumption is that there is a single honest participant. Or another way of phrasing that.
The participant would be a validator then?
A validator. Another way of phrasing that is that unless all of the validators are corrupted, the system actually maintains its integrity. And so I think what we're going to be seeing with ZK proofs is a move to more and more systems being built on the trust assumption that unless everyone is corrupt, the system is actually incorruptible.
And who's going to make up this validator set? How does that work?
So right now we're going to start with an alpha release. We're expecting to have 21 validators. But ultimately our goal is to allow anyone to be a validator. And so the situation will be that so long as there's a single honest person anywhere in the world, the system will maintain its cryptographic integrity.
Very cool, very cool. All right, last question. I'll let you go. Where do you see this kind of Bitcoin L2 sidechain space evolving in the next 2 to 3 years? And in particular, can you tell me your thoughts on where you think like Lightning fits in this, or if it fits in this kind of future at all?
I don't know where Lightning fits into it. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I have been a Lightning skeptic for basically since the invention of Lightning. One of the interesting things that a lot of people don't know, Lightning, to a great extent, was invented at my company.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Back in 2013. We were doing, we had one of the first remittance companies using Bitcoin for remittance, and we had a throughput issue.
Of course, I mean, that's one of the main limitations of Lightning.
Thaddeus Dirja, who is the author of Lightning Network, was one of the people working at the company, and this was one of the solutions that he came with. And I didn't agree that it was a good solution, and so he went and developed it himself. And I think that was great, but I just didn't think it was going to work. And I think, practically speaking, if you look back now 10 years, I've been proven right. So to the question of where do I think this is going? Look, I think there's everywhere in this conference and everywhere on crypto Twitter and in the crypto world in general, there's this deep feeling of nihilism and pessimism, right? What have we become? We've become this industry of gambling and meme coins. Like, are we actually building anything?
Argentina coin.
Right. And I think there's a reason for that, which is if you're building on Solana, if you're building on Ethereum, you're only able to build things with very, very short time frames, because the next upgrade or the next time the system goes down or the next, the system as it is only going to last for 6 months. It's extremely ephemeral. And so you can't put a 30-year mortgage. You can't do financing of large-scale financial infrastructure. You can't do pensions and long-term savings and really inheritance or any of the things that we think of when we talk about real finance. For that, we need a system which is going to outlast the assets themselves. And there's only one system like that. There's only one piece of firmware that we have in crypto, and it's Bitcoin. Up until now, we haven't been able to build on it. And so we've sort of been squeezed into only doing casinos. But now we can build them. And at exactly the same time that sort of the US government, the world's governments, the world's financial systems are starting to look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin is starting to look back and say, actually, I can handle all of this. That's what we're building with BitcoinOS. Financial operating system built in Bitcoin for the world.
Very, very cool. I said it was my last question. I have one follow-up question if you. So I think that's an awesome vision, and I can see that happening. What do you think about stablecoins on Bitcoin?
Well, I think stablecoins are extremely important. I think we're starting to see Bitcoin-backed stablecoins, which might be where this all ends up. If you think about even the US dollar used to be backed by gold. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe the US dollar is going back to being backed by gold, except this time it's going to be digital gold. Interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised if 15 years from now, the US dollar was backed by Bitcoin using BitcoinOS.
Very cool. Well, I really appreciate this. Thank you very much for educating me a little bit. We're done.